Hi, my name is Martina Chan and I teach SAT writing at PSU EduCenter. Today I'm going to give you a short introduction to my favorite part of an SAT exam, which is the essay portion. So every SAT exam begins with a 25-minute long essay question. And this is a sample prompt that I brought with me, which is, are people better off at making decisions if they remain objective and impartial? So because you only have 25 minutes, this is not going to be like your other standard high school essay, so you don't need to put so much pressure on yourself. As long as you remember the basic structure of every SAT essay, you should be able to write a 10 or above score essay for every question every time. So the structure that I just told you about begins with a thesis. So the thesis is very important because this is going to be the foundation of the essay. In other words, the whole reason you're writing your SAT essay is for this thesis. So your thesis should answer the prompt that they give you. So either, yes, people are better off at making decisions if they remain objective, or no, people are better off if they're subjective and have opinions of their own. So it's usually a yes or no question, but if you want a high-scoring essay, then you probably want to delve deeper than a yes or no. So thesis is very important. So going beyond that, thesis is just the first part, but you also need meat on the bones, right? The thesis is the bones, and examples will be the meat to support your whole essay. And you want a very full essay, so examples are also very important. Now, for both the thesis and the examples, you want to keep it simple, relevant, and specific. You don't want to put extraneous information that has nothing to do with the essay prompt or your argument, so keep it simple. And relevant is, it goes more for your examples because oftentimes students put examples that it kind of has to do with the topic, but it doesn't really support your thesis, so it's very irrelevant, and you don't want that, so always stay relevant. And specific. So for example, instead of talking about your family struggles, pick one family struggle. So maybe you got into a fight with your brother over Thanksgiving. So talk about that. Don't talk about the fact that you always fought with your brother. Because the more specific it is, the more powerful your support will be, and the more you'll be able to relate it to your reader, your SAT reader who will give you the score. So next, I'm going to give you the 3 general pools where you can pick your examples from. First, like I said, personal story, fight with your brother over Thanksgiving, or from literature. So you can talk about maybe The Great Gatsby, or the fact that American Dream is overrated, or something like that from literature. Or history, maybe you can talk about the World War II. Maybe you can talk about Obama becoming the first African-American president, something specific, but from these 3 pools. Although I'll give you one warning, is that from personal story, don't choose to write the personal story if it's not going to be relevant or specific. So you really want to be careful with a personal story, because with personal story, you can really hit it and get a 10 or maybe even a 12 on your essay if it's really powerful and relevant. But if it's just going to be, very general and not as specific, then it's really bad. So just be careful with the personal story. So now you have your thesis and examples. So now what, right? So you want to begin with a general funnel kind of structure. You start with more broad idea of where your essay is going, and then go down. So basically, your examples that I told you to be specific with will be at the bottom, right? So like a funnel structure. So the introduction, don't just put your thesis, just because that's your first impression, right? When you meet someone, you don't want to just be like, hi, my name is Martina. I'm going to tell you why you should be friends with me. Okay, so the introduction of your essay is going to be the first impression of your entire essay, so it's very important. And it is basically what your SAT reader will first read, so just keep that in mind, and don't be too simple. Don't just put the thesis in there, and make sure it seems like you have thought about this and this is your argument. So for example, what I tend to do with the introduction is provide in the very first sentence the opposite argument of your thesis. So let's say you're trying to argue that, yeah, being objective is really important. Then say, well, some may say that being subjective helps you to make decisions. Well, I beg to differ. Or, just so that it seems more well-rounded and it gives the reader the impression that you've thought about both sides. Because, like I said, it's a 25-minute essay, so you're not going to have time to, argue that the other side is wrong. So doing that in the introduction will make it smoother and give a good impression. So that's the introduction. And then, like I said, go from general to more specific, and you will give your examples in the next paragraphs. And now for my structure, I like to keep it simple and make it a 4-paragraph essay. So the first paragraph will be the introduction, where your thesis will be, and then second and third will be your 2 examples. So you can pick from any of the 3 pools that I just talked about, and you want to make it 1 paragraph, and make sure that you're not just giving like a random example and not connected to your thesis. Always remember to stay relevant. So let's say for this question, yeah, it's important to be objective because when we perceive, right, like when we see things or when we hear things, we don't just take it in objectively. We have extraneous information surrounding what we see or what we hear to make it not a total complete fact. So maybe you can say that and say it's important because people are better off when we see things clearly and we don't have the extraneous information clouding what we see. So always remember to connect it back to your thesis for your 2 other examples. And for conclusion, I know this is like the Achilles heel for most students because they're like, well, I don't want to be too repetitive, but I want to end this essay, so what do I do? So go back to what you said in your introduction and say, well, being subjective may seem like a good thing, but it's not because, and kind of summarize what you said in the example paragraphs, but not exactly. So just, sum up what was important about the 2 examples you had. So let's say you talked about your brother, the fight with your brother. Maybe you can say being objective would have helped me in my family matters and, allowed me to be wiser. So something like that. Just don't say exactly what you said in the previous paragraphs, but just wrap it up, like why you said it. So yeah, so that's basically it. I gave you what you should always keep in mind: simple, relevant, specific. Example pools where you can get your examples from, what you should watch out for, and basically the 4-paragraph structure. So this is not going to be easy when you first try, but once you keep practicing and develop more skills, it's going to be easy. Even though every SAT question gives you different question, you'll soon realize that it's very predictable and you can always use a structure for every question and you're going to have a very reliable score. So yeah, that was my short introduction. I hope you join me this June and good luck.